Hi, thanks for joining us for another episode of Ask Spurrell CPA. Today we're talking about why you don't read resumes when hiring. And I have May here with me. Hey May, thanks for joining me again on another episode. So are you excited for tax time?
Very excited to learn at this point, yeah.
We're going to get through all those returns, right? So 30 days, right? Okay, so the quote that we have here today talking about resumes is a quote from Jim Collins, author of 6 business books. Those who build great companies underestimate that the ultimate throttle on growth for any great company is not the markets or technology or competition or products. It is one thing above all others, the ability to get and keep the right people. So the statistic that I have on this subject is Hire Right in Inc. magazine. They report that 85% of people lie on their resumes. 85% of people lie on the resumes. And the story that we have are business owners, and they're spending an inordinate amount of time reviewing resumes of people that they ultimately are not going to want to hire. So, May, what are the questions you think these business owners should be asking?
Well, the first question is, how often will people not show up or show up late to a job interview?
Yeah, I would say, roughly a third to a half. So if we're talking about, you're booking interviews with people and it's either going to become so difficult to book it because they're going to cancel and want to reschedule, or they're going to show up late, or they're not going to come at all. I think that's probably 1/3 of all the people, and so you're reading their resume, and then what happens is they don't show up, or they show up late, or they want to reschedule 4 times before they come. That's not probably the person that you want, but how much time have you spent reading resumes for the people who are like that?
And how long will it take often to deem an employee and not hireable during an interview?
Probably less than 60 seconds. Like a lot of times you just know when you meet someone, do I want to work with this person or not? And they immediately start talking, or their presence, and maybe they showed up late again. There's a number of factors. Maybe it's their appearance. They didn't come dressed for the job. They showed up to an accounting interview in jeans, or something of that nature. Often it's less than 60 seconds. You don't want to hire this person. But again, how many hours have you spent reading resumes of people like this before the fact?
And how much time is wasted reading resumes or on the phone with applicants?
Well, we probably used to spend on a regular hiring round, we'd probably spend at least 8 hours on the phone with applicants. So reading resumes, trying to fill 8 interview slots type of thing. Reading resumes, calling them up, trying to schedule a time one-on-one with them. I would think it's probably pretty close to 1 hour per interview that you want to do in between, reading all the resumes that come in and then calling them out and trying to schedule a one-on-one time with them. I would venture to guess that it's pretty close to an hour per interview that you want to do.
And how much time is wasted giving the same company overview to each applicant?
Yeah, so then they come into the job interview, and the first part of the interview, probably let's call it the first half an hour, is giving them the same spiel, the same overview about the job. So now we have another 4 hours there invested if we're doing 8 interviews. Just saying the same thing over and over, basically a predetermined speech. So not really an effective use of time, I don't feel.
Are most people underestimating the number of candidates they need to see?
Yeah, completely. Like, most business owners are just completely underestimating the number of candidates. In fact, most business owners probably make their first hire from someone that got referred to them. This is so-and-so's nephew, or this is my daughter-in-law, and that's the person who's going to get the job, or this is a friend of a friend, and they get the job. And they're completely underestimating the number of candidates. And it's one of the big advantages that big companies have over small companies. They have that HR department that can see candidate after candidate after candidate, and they can just completely bury a small business owner in terms of the talent that they're going to see. I would probably put a number out there for people. If you want to hire someone, you probably have to meet 100 people. So yeah, that's kind of that scary number. You wrap your head around that. If you want to hire one good candidate, meet 100 people.
And how can you use a group interview to avoid that time wasted?
So that's how think about the average small business owner. I'm telling you got to meet 100 people, and I'm telling you half these people, they're not going to show up to the interview. A lot of them, why you need to meet 100 people is because a lot of them, they won't be hireable based on, once they come in, just your initial perception of them. I mean, maybe they could be a good people, but they might not be right for that position. So the group interview is just a way to completely magnify that. It's just a complete time hack on meeting these people. So, what can happen is, you get an applicant who responds in, and instead of booking a one-on-one time with them, you just send them out a template email saying of when you do your group interviews. And it's not, let's call and discuss a time that's good for you. It's, we're doing one group interview on this day at this time, another group interview at this day at this time, another group interview on this day at this time. If you're interested in this job, you're going to make one of those three work. And that's really how you can look at it. And you can get all these people in, and you can give them that same overview, because they all want to know the same things about the jobs. So usually even the questions that people ask in these group interviews, if you were to do them one-on-one, you're going to just answer that same question over and over again, as opposed to just doing it once in a group interview. So you can just meet a lot more people in a group setting than you ever could one-on-one, and you start to close that gap against the big companies who have an HR department who can meet people all day long.
And when is the first time that you read the applicant's resume?
After they come to that group interview. So they've showed up on time and they've actually showed up, period. And then they've said something in that group interview that makes me think that they're hireable. They've passed that initial perception test. Then and only then is when I actually read their resume. So I go from reading 50 to 80 resumes per week of the people who apply to one or two or maybe three per week at most after the group interview session of the people who came and I thought they were of the right the values that aligned with our company.
Should you then attempt to verify the skills listed on the resume?
Yeah, we still have to go back to the fact that 85% of people lie on resumes. So just because they say they can do it, if you have a way that you can test that they can do it, that's extremely effective. So if you can verify any of the skills that they're reporting on that resume, that's just going to put you in a much better position to make a good selection.
What's more important, skill or coachability and the ability to overcome adversity?
So that's another thing, that you read that resume and it'll have the skills listed on the resume, but it doesn't have, are they coachable, or do they have that kind of makeup that they can overcome adversity? Which I would agree that those are more important, because you can have all the skill in the world, but the minute you run into adversity, you get off track. Well, guess what? You're not going to perform a lot, because in the real world, there always is some adversity. Things don't go according to plan all the time. So I would, think that coachability and ability to overcome adversity are, more important than the skill. I mean, they have to have that minimal level of skill that's required to do that particular job. But, coachability and adversity is probably what you're going to make your selection on.
What's more important, education or a commitment to lifelong learning? Yeah,
I would think that even if they have, a resume is going to list what education that they have, but how much time have they spent, going through their craft or their trade or their profession after they completed the, kind of the certificate, if you will. That's probably going to be more indicative of if they're a high-level employee or if they're a low-level employee. Those things are difficult to ascertain on a resume, because the resume is normally going to say, where they went to school, how long it was, what's their degree program, what was their ticket program. That's what's listed on a resume.
And are these attributes rarely ever communicated on a resume?
Yeah, these, when you start getting into that, are they coachable? Can they overcome adversity? Have they taken an interest on furthering their learning? And a lot of the further learning is not as formal, so it wouldn't be attached to a formal certificate. Is this the type of person who they became an electrician, but they stopped learning about being an electrician the day they got their ticket 10 years ago, or they want to be an accountant, but they've never done anything to further their accounting skills, since they completed, other than their minimal professional development hours, which they're trying to hit a checkbox more than trying to further their career. So these sort of attributes, they're just not communicated on a resume. Even if you're reading the resume, these are some of the most important attributes at all. And you really can't tell them, even if you were to read every single resume in detail. But if you can get in front of them and ask them some questions and figure out what their makeup is, you can start to understand, are these people coachable? Can they overcome adversity? Do they have an interest in any lifelong learning in whatever path that they're choosing to pursue? So that's, I think, what we have here today on why you don't read resumes when hiring. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. As well, we'll be happy to address anything in future videos. Thanks very much.